Hey everybody, welcome back to the You're Not Broken podcast. Today I'm very excited to have my friend Tamsen Fadal on, and we are going to talk about the M Factor movie and the premieres in case anybody's been living under a freaking rock. Welcome to the podcast.
Good to see you. I know, right?
I know, it's so good. To me, I'm like, it's just like part of my language right now that this documentary is happening. It's like, it's
I
partly
love
sunny today and the menopause documentary is happening. So like,
you because of you, superstar.
oh God. Well, let's take us back to the beginning. Like, where did the seed get planted?
Oh gosh. Well, I've been a journalist for a million years, and when I really realized what was going on in my life, I kept talking to incredible doctors like yourself and talking to a lot of different experts, and I kept realizing there's like information everywhere, but never really in one place and never streamlined. So you could really kind of understand what was going on, not just with your hormones, but with all the other aspects. And Joanne Lamarca, who's one of the co-producers, and I were talking one day. She was on the Today Show for years. And we said, we know how to storytell, right? We understand how to do that. We understand that this needs to be a combination of experts and real women, and they've got to be merged together in a way that it teaches and informs. So let's go see what this is all about. So we the very first day we walked out into the middle of Times Square, pandemic still going on, people still masked up, and we were like, "Do you know what menopause is?" And some people were like, "Get away from me! Don't spread whatever you got going on. Don't give me menopause. I've already been dealing with COVID."
Right? Is that the next virus?
Yeah, right.
What's happening?
I feel like people go, "I have hot flashes now being around you." So we said, well, there's something here because a lot of people didn't have information, but we need to do it in a way where it's not haha funny and it is informative and it does make sense and it's actionable, right? By the end of reading it, it's the here's what I do next. And we wound up talking to two more people who do documentaries in on the West Coast, Denise Pines and Kobe Atlas, and they said we're working on a documentary, and we said, well, instead of competing, let's do it together. And that's what we started to do. So 3 years ago, Joe and I started. 2 years ago, we started with Denise and Kobe, and then we went all across the country finding women's stories, talking to doctors who would bring their patients in who were very raw and vulnerable and willing to discuss things. And then we said, okay, how much can we fit into this? PBS was an incredible partner to say, yes, we know that there's a need for this. Yes, we are going to air it. And so we started putting it together. And, we have so much film. We have so many interviews that I can't wait to keep pushing out there. But we had to get it down to the hour space that we had allotted for PBS and the length of their documentaries. And I think the director did an incredible job of giving us enough of understanding the women's story so people can be seen in the documentary and then also learn something from it.
Yeah, I've seen it 2 times now, and to me, I'm like, I'm an expert. I know this topic at this
I
point.
know.
And it's like the second time I watched it, you get more out of it than even the first time, and that's me being completely fluent in this.
Thank you for saying that.
So,
Thank
and I watched it with a friend who's a family physician. She watched it the first time with me because we did it at my house before we
Mhm.
did it. We did a huge premiere for it yesterday with
Yes.
over 800 people, and got
So
more out of it that
thank
time.
you for that. Thank you for that. I followed it I had FOMO, by the way.
It was a big stage. It was a
Oh,
big auditorium. We had Canadians, like we had lots of Seattle come up. We had men. There were men there.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
It was
I
awesome.
just
How many hours of film got whittled down to like 58 minutes, 54 minutes?
Yeah. We had dozens and dozens of interviews. I remember with each person, and you probably saw this, we did a really long time shooting, like for how it has to be, whittled down. I couldn't even tell you how many hours, honestly. I just know that we're starting to put out the longer form interviews. So there'll be the interview of
Amazing.
you, like the whole thing. And so,
Amazing.
that's going to be like half of it'll be 30 minutes easily.
Yeah.
And so but I think that it's important that we do that for a couple of different reasons. We want to make sure that the whole story is told, and because there's so much information in terms of these like little details that we want women to know, and people want more information. Like people are asking us for more information, and so I feel like that's really promising. A friend of mine came and saw it because we did our New York premiere on Friday night. And, I was like the girl that goes, is anyone going to show up for my birthday party? Like, that's what I was thinking. I was so nervous on Friday night. And we had this
This is the
incredible,
first premiere that you've been at for
well,
this?
that was the first one that I
That
hosted.
was your
We
premiere.
went to LA,
Yeah,
and
you
that
went
was
to, okay.
our premiere, but it was, Denise handled that part. She's like, well, New York's all yours. And I went, oh. So, and it was World Menopause Day, and it was a Friday night, and it was all those things. And so, but it was unbelievable, the turnout. And what was more exciting to me was after that, talking to so many women that were like, I had no idea, I want to watch it again. I want to watch, I want to watch it with my husband and my daughter. Somebody is coming back tonight to the premiere we're having in Montclair, New Jersey, because she's like, I just want to watch it one more time with a room of people. So I
It's
think that's
cool
kind
to
of,
watch it with a room of people and
yeah,
see where they laugh, see
yeah,
where you can hear a pin
yeah,
drop, like really have the audience's experience. And then somebody
yeah,
from last night I was talking to afterwards, she's like, okay, now I have to watch this on my own at home so I can
yeah,
have a pause button and I
yeah.
can take notes,
Wow. That's,
so that's like a whole different experience of like where you can like pause it, take
yep,
it in,
yep.
write something down.
And I think that that's really what it was for, and then the secondary part of it, along with, having it for real women and real audiences, is also now for doctors as well. So, it was accredited for the continuing medical education credits. And so that was super exciting. So I feel like it's starting to help move different needles, and
Yeah.
that was really the goal of it. The goal wasn't just to make a film. The goal was to really create the conversation, which is why we have licensed it out for communities. So we have, 150 screenings right now scheduled, and we have like 600 in the queue.
600 in the queue.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
we
I
have
was using the 150, but even
that's
I
what we
was
have
like, I'm like,
scheduled. That's accurate.
okay, but I'm like, that can't be it. The way and I'm like, I live in a bubble, right? I
Yeah.
live and breathe this, but I'm like, there's going to be more than 150.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Totally.
international too, which is exciting because right now we're in the process of acquiring international rights, and
Okay.
so once that happens, that's a different ballgame. But like I have, I do a lot of the hellos for people, and I have one in
Mhm.
Australia, I have one in Tanzania, I have one like all these places that I'm like, what is
Yeah,
going on? Like that
amazing.
is unbelievable. So that, and we have it translated with closed caption in different languages now. So we're trying to add
Perfect.
as many languages as we can.
Oh
So
yeah, somebody had just reached out to me about Spanish.
we got that one done.
Is Spanish on PBS?
Spanish is not on. Well, it must be now because the closed caption is up there. So
Okay,
that's what we have. So it must be because they just did the closed caption. So that's where they would be doing it.
nice. Okay, so at least Spanish is up now on PBS.
Yeah.
I'm like putting you on the
French,
spot.
I
Sorry.
think they did. Yeah, they've done a bunch of different ones because they were all things that we had planned to roll out, but we just didn't know how quickly it was going to catch on. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, then we'll do this, then we'll do that, then we'll do it. And then we're like, we better do this now. So, but it's super exciting because people are making it their own, and that's what we really love about it is that they're making it their own. And that was the intention of that. That's what the intention of this whole conversation has been, as you know.
I think a lot of the screenings that are happening, and what I did for my screening is like we watch the film
Yeah.
and then we talk, or
Yeah.
we bring like for what I did, I brought up a panel to talk about menopause in the workplace. I already
Yeah.
got an email today, which is one day after, from our hospital saying we want to
Yeah.
bring that into the hospital because over 50% of
Amazing.
our employees are women,
Amazing.
right? So it's like real time change happening.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. There's no question. Real time change. And I think, we wanted to hit a lot of those different areas. We wanted to hit workplace. We wanted to hit sex, brain. We wanted to HRT solutions, hormone solutions, non-hormonal solutions, because I think we had to do as much as we could in that limited amount of time, but also make sure that it was understandable, because if it's not understandable, what's the point? We
Yep.
needed to make it where it was very understandable terms so people could take action next. I want them to walk into their doctor's office and be like, hey, I saw this. This is what I want to have a conversation about, whether I decide to do hormones or not. So, you and I have known each other for a while now. And my source of pleasure is always storytelling. And it's always like that platform. I could never have imagined this though. And it's due to people like you. I mean, you were one of the first people to call me. You were like, I'm going to rent an auditorium and have like hundreds of people at it. And the next thing I know, you're like, I have 800 people coming. I went, what? So you're always my example. I'm like,
Now
but
you can say
Kelly
like,
Patterson has 800
right.
people.
Not that we're slightly competitive as like, who we
I
are,
love
but
it.
I'm like, yeah, you could be like,
Love it.
okay, who's got bigger than that? Well,
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
asked me, because I
Nobody.
think this is good for people to know who are listening, who want to screen it, of number one, it's not too late to screen it. And number two, like, people are like, how did you do that? And I'm like, listen,
Yeah,
you call a theater and you say,
yeah,
what does it take to rent
yeah,
it? And then
yeah.
you reach out to the mfactorfilm.com
Yes. Yes.
and you do fill out the form for screening.
Hmm.
And I'm like, and then you got to do a little bit of advertising, whether
Yeah,
that's local radio. Like my local radio was amazing. They loved
yeah.
the story. Like I have a decent Instagram. But
Yes, you
even
do.
if you don't have that local
Yeah,
newspaper, radio, local podcasts, local whatever, your local bookstore, your local theater
yeah.
guild, like business email lists, right? I'm just like, I want to give people inspiration of like, dude, this is not hard.
You can do
Like,
it.
it's
Yeah.
not hard to do. Like I had a full-time job and
No, but you're my
still do
perfect
this.
example. You need to come on and we need to do an IG live on the M Factor account and on mine, and maybe figure out a way to like put them both up together or jump from one to the other, because a lot of people want to do these, like they go and see it and then they want to go do a screening, and we're encouraging that, because I don't care if it's 20 people or if it's 200 people or if it's 2,000 people. It's kind of the same, the way to do it. You just got to plan for that extension. And I do think there's something to it, seeing it with other people, like you said. I feel like there's a different energy. The energy is palpable. You can feel it. And I think you can feel that something's happening. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? And when I was at an event, so Friday, and I went to the Swell event that we met at the next day, and people were coming up like, I'm having a screening in Dallas, I'm having one in Seattle, I'm having one in in Los Angeles, and that, like, I left there at the end of the day, and I came home and I just went, I never want this time in my life to end. Like, I'm so excited to see this moving along now, finally. Like, we've been talking about it for a long time. And just to see that it's helping people is really, and I quit my job almost a year ago. So it makes me feel like, okay, this is, this is getting the message out there.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, this is big. It's big. This isn't like, I mean, PBS is big. The validation that comes with PBS, the validation that comes with CME accreditation for
Yeah.
physicians,
Thank
like
you.
really legitimizing the quality of this. And I
Thank you.
think, you had said earlier, and me thinking back, like before I got into this niche of like, menopause was always something that was kind of made fun of. And
Yeah.
like, humor in kind of like a gross
Yeah.
sort of way. And I mean, now we have great stand-ups doing, great comedy about it,
Yeah.
but like, it's not crude. It's not fart jokes. Like, this is not a
Yeah.
fart joke topic,
No, no, it's kind of like the thing we can all commiserate with, if funnily, you know what I mean? Because there is, you gotta laugh, right?
Gotta laugh. Yeah.
But it's not laughing at it. It was laughing at us, not with us.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that
That's
that's
the
the
difference.
difference. And I think, like, if we want to laugh about it, it's okay. If you want to laugh at us, then I have a problem.
Yep.
And that was part of what we were trying to figure out when we did the film. Is, we were saying, like, should we have a comedian hosting it? Should we do a lot of the old movie clips or TV clips and put that in? And then we decided really to strip that back and say, no, we have this amount of time. We have to use every minute of that time to put information in there.
Yep.
And then also do things that maybe people don't know about, maybe
Yep.
some history and understanding, how we got to this place where women at this age were just kind of, not looked upon as we are now, or should be. And so I'm encouraged by what I'd love to see. I'd love to see where we are. I'd love to be able to, like, look through a looking glass and be like, where is it going to be in 2 years? What does this conversation look like?
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that the M Factor is a huge part of that conversation to move it to the next level, so people can get the help they need.
Yeah, totally.
Really.
And the movie did such a good job of, it's not in your face. It's not like, this is what you need to know. This is the fact. Like, it's very much like, here's a platter, and then everybody can take, like, everybody took something different from it, like from the antebellum South
Yeah.
father of gynecology story of like, really sharing like women aren't treated very well in medicine, and there's a dark history to this,
Yeah.
right? Like
There
that's
is.
very moving for
There is.
people. The testosterone, right? I was talking to somebody else about the screening in Seattle, and they're like, everybody there wanted to talk about the testosterone.
Sure.
And then at my event, the teeth, everybody's
Oh,
like, oh my God, the teeth.
I know. It was unbelievable. When we heard that, I went, what? But was funny when I
So
filmed
glad
that,
you put that in there.
I have a tooth that cracked, and I never had teeth problems in my life. And I had to get a root canal. And I was like, what in the world? And then I had to get the tooth taken out, which by the way, I've been so lazy about getting it replaced, but it's way back there, so you can't see it. And but I went, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable information. And then at first we were like, I don't know. Is that like are people going to be shocked or not think it's a big? It's the one thing everyone talks about because it's just such a big deal. And so I have even myself sometimes when I'm watching it, I watch it a lot of times. I find myself like just listening and paying attention. But I just think it's because we haven't had the conversation for such a long time that maybe we're all so grateful to hear it. And then you hear something a little bit different in it each time.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too, just as a physician, because teeth are excluded from medical education.
Yeah, I didn't
Right.
realize that. I didn't know.
And so for us to be like, hold on.
Yeah, because nobody would come to you and say that to you, probably, right? They wouldn't even have that. Would they even have that conversation with you?
No, I haven't heard it much in my clinic. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think if I hear like I tend to hear more like gum disease, inflammation,
Okay.
which we
Okay.
know is associated with heart disease, and then we know both of those are associated with low estrogen, right? So
Sure.
like the story's all there,
Yep. Yep.
but like to hear the dentist say this is what we see happening or this is
Yep.
what we learned.
Yep.
I had some dentists in the audience.
Yep.
And so actually, again, that was yesterday. Talked to one of them today and was like, what'd you think about the teeth thing? Right. Because
Yeah.
like last night, everybody was like, the teeth. And so
Yes. Yes.
the dentist was like,
It's
I went home.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's
The dentist is
unbelievable.
like, I went home and I looked it all up, you know, because she's going to fact check her
Right.
stuff. Right. And she's like, yep. And we didn't get taught it. And she's like, my employees are 50, they're miserable, right? So she tied like the dentist thing to her employees and, you know, like all of the stuff. It's so applicable to everybody.
It is. It is. And I'm so grateful for the real women though. And thank you for, for having, some of your patients talking to us, but who are so willing to share their stories because that's not easy. I mean, I know that we all
It's
talk
not
about
easy.
it, but honestly, that's not easy. That's not easy that your face is going to be everywhere, that you're going to go to work the next day and somebody heard you talk about your sex life or lack of. And so I'm grateful for that because it allowed people to feel very seen and it allowed people to feel like, oh yeah, I totally get what she's saying. And in New York, we had a couple of people who were in the film come, and they were just awesome. It's just I feel like I have friends for life.
Yeah.
They're just like they're people I feel like they're my family now. And so I hope the M Factor is screened in as many places as people can do it, and that's why we try to make it easy. And we said just please just don't upload it to YouTube. That's all you have to. That's basically the whole promise on there.
Yep.
And then did you find it pretty easy? Everything else, did you need more stuff, or if you have any advice or thoughts,
Easy.
we'll take any of them. This is
Oh
our first
no.
time.
Like yeah, I'm like, I have no feedback. It was very easy. And like to me, I'm like, I have a full-time job
I know you
and
do.
everything else that I do. Right. And I'm like, and I sold out a theater.
I know.
So
It's unbelievable. And you did tickets, which I thought were so cool.
yeah, I know the tickets had said the M Factor film sponsored by the Casperson Clinic, which is super, super cute. Yeah, I asked so that we filmed the film and then I got right up on stage and I asked for people's feelings.
Oh, you did. Great. Great.
Yeah.
And what did you hear?
I'm like, what did you feel? What did this movie make you feel?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so cool because it's all across the board, right?
Yeah.
Like energized, excited, pissed, like, like shocked. And then I'm like, and the teeth, and everyone's like, the teeth. So,
and you did a little dance to warm the audience
I did a little dance. Well, that was actually just for me. That was, nobody got to see that except for the millions on Instagram. I posted that afterwards. I'm like, this is too good to not post.
I would have been mad if you didn't show that.
Yeah. My brother sent me a Seinfeld meme. I'm like, it's a little Elaine, but it's fine.
I just got that.
Yeah, I was like, Where do you see this going as far as like, I think if international's next,
Yeah.
I think everybody's asking for that. So I think that's probably the next step. And I don't want to take you out of the like basking in the now, but
Oh
like,
no, I'm good.
is there like a next thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do the longer form interviews, and I think that that's a really big deal. And I think that the creation this community is being created as we speak. We want to make sure that we're connecting everybody together because I think that that's going to be a huge part of it, and then just start lifting people from there. I mean, I have my book comes out next year, so that's we're going to do some of that with some of these screenings going forward, and so
Amazing.
that'll be like another part of it. But right now, I think it's really important for us to get as many places to screen it as possible because there are places where people might not have 200 people, they might have 20, and I want them to feel as empowered to sit there and do that too, because I,
Yes.
I think that's important because we have to get into these communities that don't have these conversations, and there are a lot of them. And um and if we can do that, and then we can get doctors to come into these communities and talk to women, because there are a lot of places, I mean, this, there are a lot of places where people go like, I don't have a doctor, I don't have anybody to talk, there's nobody around that I feel specializes in this. So that's part of our goal with this. Workplace is another place we definitely want to reach. And I think that those are like kind of the lofty goals for the next year or so, and then figure out what's next in terms of another film or an expanded version or an updated version, to make sure that we continue to, I mean, this information changes so much, and
Yeah.
we want to make sure we stay on top of that so it's always relevant.
Yeah. Well, I think you did really well at right now. I can't think of any. It's not like you put in a fact that is going to change much as
Yeah,
far as
yeah,
like,
yeah.
this
Thank
is
you.
the current dose for blah blah
Right,
blah. Like, you
right,
didn't put
right.
anything in there that might change. I think it's really going to last
Thank you.
for a long time.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope
What
so.
was
I hope those extended interviews are something that people can appreciate, because you guys spent a lot of time with us, and we want people to see those longer form.
Yeah, like even in the women that I brought to interview, like their stories are so amazing, and it's like
Yeah.
to actually like see the film and then dig deeper. It
Yeah.
like I always love the extra stuff on the movies, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
love I
That's
love
what
the
I know.
takeouts, outtakes.
The outtakes on them, right? I know. I
Tell
know. I
me,
can't even imagine some of my outtakes on this one. I can't even remember them.
I know you're gonna get a blooper reel for you. Tell me about the book.
Book, How to Menopause.
Love the
And it
name.
is, that I was struggling. Like last time you were here, when we
Yeah,
did
you
this
were just
interview,
you were just having to get it in.
I had just had to get it in.
Mhm.
And so it comes out in March. It's on pre order now, and it's called How to Menopause. And 42 amazing experts, you included,
Amazing.
are part of it. But it was important for me to go beyond the doctor's office with the book and spread out and go into workplace and go into, sex and brain and bedroom and style and all the things that kind of change during this time in life.
Yeah.
Relationships, a big one. And so I'm excited about it. And I
Relationships are huge.
huge. And I just felt like,
Huge.
yeah, I spent a long time in the relationship world. I had a matchmaking business, in another lifetime, and I saw a lot of the struggles that women went through. And now I realize, looking back, like when I saw women that were in their, late 40s or 50s, now I realize that what they were dealing with. And so, relationships are a big part of this conversation that can't be excluded and put in another category. And, I just don't think you can separate any of these things. And that
Yeah.
was what the film did. And the book is kind of like that extended, companion to it. With a different tone, more of like personal stories tone,
Mhm.
obviously. But yeah, it was fun to write now that it's done.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah, yeah. Writing books are awesome when they're
When I
when
closed
they're
it.
fully formed. Like, look, I wrote a book. And meanwhile, like the husband's like, "Are you sure you like this?" Like,
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
ah,
Gosh, gosh, right?
very few people say they like writing a book when they're writing the book.
Ah,
What was the going back to like the men and the relationships? What's the feedback you're getting from men who watch the film?
yeah, it's interesting. I did. It's not that I didn't put men in the equation. I think I put them more in the equation for the book and not so much in the film. And we had even talked to some of the people's spouses or partners. We didn't wind up using those, but two of the people that were in the film, their partners came with them to New York, and we're just kind of blown away by it all. And I think that when I'm talking to people that are seeing it with their partners, like a friend of mine had a hysterectomy, and she said, my husband, we watched a film together, and he just held me. afterwards and like really understood. And I just have to tell you that. It gives me chills to tell you that
Oh
because
my
I just read
God.
the text a few hours ago.
That's how you do
And
it
then,
right. Hey,
yeah,
men, that's how you do it right.
that's how you do it right. That's how you do it right. And so, but that's really amazing because I think like I wasn't taking into consideration like men watching it necessarily.
Yeah,
Like I,
yeah, yeah.
you
They weren't your
know,
target audience.
podcast, most of it's for women. You do a film like this, it's for women, but not really. And so that's been exciting to see that the male reaction of I had no idea, or oh my gosh, I was so surprised, or wow, now I understand. And I did a I was at a interview not too long ago, and this guy came running after me who had been running the camera, and he said, "My wife is everything that you're describing right now, and I just want to help her. What can I do?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, you need to repeat that to 50 of your friends."
Yeah, totally.
And I
I had a guy who was on the crew at the theater last night
oh wow, wow,
come up
that's
to
very
me.
cool.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
watch. Yeah,
Yeah, and they're like, I need, this is what I needed.
it's real.
It's
It's
very
real.
tangible to them,
Yeah,
right? Like I think it's a
yeah,
very nebulous thing until they can get like concrete facts about
yep,
like this is real shit.
yep, yep. Yep.
Oh,
It is.
okay.
It is.
There's something like it solidifies it.
Yeah, it 100% is. And it's and I also think it opens an uncomfortable conversation that, or what might seemingly be uncomfortable for couples. You know, like maybe you don't know how to bring it up to somebody or workplace or your child or your husband or whatever. And I hope that this kind of helps open that up if they're watching it,
Yeah.
versus
I
where
thought
what's hard.
the one woman on there in the blue sweater who was talking about her experience, she was kind of like the good relationship nugget in there of like I love my husband
Yeah.
and this
Yeah.
is my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. They came to the screening in New York. And so it was like,
Oh, that's so cool.
it was just, yeah, it was cool. It was just like cool to,
That's so cool. So when
and
you
also
were a
I watched
matchmaker,
it like 10 times. So,
that's awesome. When you were a matchmaker, roughly how old were you?
I was in my early 30s,
Early 30s.
yeah,
And
yeah,
did you
yeah.
have like 50-year-olds that that were
Easily,
your easily?
easily.
And
Because work, like so many of the guys wanted to date really young, there'd be this like big age spread. So yeah, so that there was a lot.
okay. And with your lens now, looking back on that, do you see that all very differently now?
So differently. Well, differently in a couple of different ways. Differently in that I guess I would always, because you can't put an older head on young shoulders, right? So you, I was looking at it through my lens, right? My
Mhm.
lens was, oh my gosh, you're really lucky. You don't have to worry about all these other things you have to worry about when you're 30. Like so you just have fun and not a big deal. What I wasn't taking into consideration was sex is different, experience is different, relationships are different, body is different, feeling comfortable getting undressed with somebody is different. All these things are different, and that wasn't my framework. I
Mhm.
just didn't understand it. Now I understand it. And I went through a divorce and then I got remarried at 50. So I understood it. I was in the height of perimenopause when I met Ira, and I didn't have any idea. Periods were bizarre. I thought it was stress. I couldn't sleep. I was gaining weight. I was like, he'd make a plan and then I'd forget until the day. I mean, it was just when I look back at it, I'm like, I was a perfect menopause patient. Like I had everything. I had everything. So yeah, my going back to your question though, very different. Very different.
That's awesome. I mean, Ira, you know him more than I do, but like Ira's in the industry as far as like entertainment, what
Yeah.
people like. What
Yeah.
was his input on you wanting to create something like this?
I think he was in shock on Tuesday night. Like he had seen it and heard little blips of it. And then like he'd watch and then he'd like, I'd be seeing him on his phone looking at the score or something. And I'm like, are you watching the documentary? Because the poor guy, like every time we get a new version, I'm like, this might be the final version we should watch. And
Right.
so
And he's like, he's in
like,
it. Like you've been doing this for like 3 years now,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
I'm like, look at this. You just look at this one thing. And so I think he didn't really know what to expect. And like, I'm sorry, but when you say the word menopause documentary, no one's jumping to the front to be like, oh, I'll screen it for you. And so I think that he was blown away. Well, he was with me in LA, and two of my friends brought their husbands to see it. So now he's sitting with two of his friends, and all three of the guys watched it. And one of them it's kind of a, he's like a smart aleck, and he came up afterwards and he goes, nothing sarcastic. He was like, I, I can't even believe what I've learned. And so so I think Ira got his, tone from there and was like, this is great. Look at all this, it's amazing. I think he's just kind of a little surprised by it all, but um, he said to me in New York, like, I've never seen an audience sit still so, like, without moving or fidgeting, or because, like, you could hear a pin drop at sometimes, and I've never seen that before. And he's been in this, he's watched a lot of screenings, been to a lot of these things, and so I think he thought that was a really good sign of that people wanted and needed that information. So that was nice to hear.
I love it. I mean, yeah, just his lens on, like, how
Yeah,
do you entertain people? What are people
yeah,
interested
yeah,
in? Like, do you pay attention to what the audience is doing?
yeah.
Like, all of those things is very cool.
Yeah, that was
What
great.
what was the most difficult thing in making this documentary?
Um, well, I mean, we got a lot of no's originally. Like, we got, no one's going to watch that. We're not airing that on our streamer. And a lot of no's to funding. So we self-funded, and we were determined, and we are like, if we have to put it up on YouTube, if whatever we have to do. And so when PBS came, I was like, this is the best of all worlds. Like, I couldn't have
Yeah.
even imagined something better. So
Yeah.
that was amazing to me, because I felt really like, they understood, and I knew they were gonna pay attention, you know what I mean, and make sure it was great, and they're just so trustworthy, and so that was really nice. But I think that the hardest part probably was trying to figure out how to put all that information in a short period of time. It's very hard to leave things out for me.
Well,
Like, I'm like,
I mean,
oh
the editing you have to kill your babies, as they
yeah,
say.
and
As
it
they
was
say in the editing
yeah.
world.
It was really hard, and I was like, "Oh, no, that has just nope, not it, no, there's nothing to remove, nothing." And, like, eventually we found it, and Kobe was really great about it, and she's done this so many times as a director. She was like, "Okay, Tamsen," and then she takes something out, and I'm like, "Okay, well, maybe that, but nothing else," So that was hard, but we had just a great team to work. It was 4 women came together. I mean, I really like, now that I know what the end result was, like what it came to look like, I'd love to do it all again, and been enjoying it all during the process. I was like, I'm so stressed out.
Right. And it was Kobe's third PBS documentary.
Oh God, she's done
Third
so.
or fourth. Right.
Yeah,
Like, she is
they've
an
been so.
absolute pro.
She's such a pro. She's so smart, and she's just like, she's somebody I learned from. I've never done a documentary before. I've done a lot of interviews, and I've done a lot of storytelling, and I've done a lot of promotion, but I'd never done that. So it was a really nice group to all come together, because everyone kind of learned from everybody else. So that was sort of cool too. So it couldn't have been a better, I don't know, entree into my next chapter, than this experience. It was really like, I wanted to get up every day and go to work with these people.
Yeah,
So
they're incredible, and their networks are incredible. Like,
thank you.
they've been in it. They know
I've been
people.
there.
They know how to get people to
Yeah.
show up. Like, these are the
Yeah.
people. Your team is the team to create this film,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, I'm
Like,
really proud of them. I'm
it
really,
it wouldn't have been created the same way had it not been this team.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
I'm
it.
really proud of them. They're
Your
so,
story is so cool. I mean, sorry, it had to be shitty at the beginning, right? Like, but, like, your story is so cool because you kind of went from this, like, truly suffering through the learning to feeling better, and it's like the true hero's journey, right? Like, the hero has to go out, has to learn, and
the
then
sweaty
brings
one.
the sweaty journey, and then they have to bring the truth back to the people. Like, that's the definition of the hero's journey,
Yeah.
and that's what you've done.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I could never have anticipated any of this. I think that most of it was so I could figure out what the hell was going on with me. And then, the next part of it was like, I just couldn't believe that I was so naive, and I was sitting there with wire services and any news organization I could, like we have access to all this information, and this wasn't part of it. And I think that was the shocking part for me. That was really shocking. And then I also think that my mom and the history of my mother dying young, and not having had that conversation, I think that was all part of it. So it was sort of this, I don't know, it all came together. Somebody's like, how did you make such a pivot? And I said, I didn't really make a pivot. Like, I didn't, it just kind of kept taking me. It was like
Yeah.
it was more like, I don't know how to
Yeah.
describe it, but it just kept going. I didn't,
Yeah.
I wasn't directing it. I
Yeah.
wasn't directing the ship for sure.
That's how I feel on my journey because
Yeah.
people, you can only see it only makes sense looking backwards, right?
Yeah.
But like
Yeah, of
I am
course.
on a ride. The
Yeah.
universe is using me
Yeah.
for what the universe
Yeah.
is using me for.
Yep.
My job is to have fun and, to make sure I'm not suffering in the
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Right?
I love it.
But like both of us were like, I don't know what 2 years
Yeah.
from now is. We have
Yeah.
no idea. And we're both very okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know what's next. And I used to want to be like, I have to plan this out. I need a to-do list. What's going on? Where are we going next? We have to plan. And now I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I could have never expected this. We put the dock out. I was a nervous wreck putting the trail out. I remember where I was when it happened. And then all of a sudden it was like, sure. And I went, oh, all these people are going to see it now, because we've been working on
Right.
this long privately. I'm like, oh no, people are going to see the trailer. And they're like, well,
They're like,
and so,
that is why you created this.
and so that was, it's just, but who knew? And I'm just so grateful, man. I'm just so grateful. And I just hope it makes a lot of changes for people. I really
I
do.
love it. So on Instagram, the M Factor Film.
Yes.
On the website is the mfactorfilm.com.
Yep.
pbs.org
Yep.
is where they go. So this is the other thing, and give me pro tips. People are like, I can't get it on PBS or blah blah, and I've said ask your local PBS station to air it, which does a couple, and I've already gotten feedback that they're doing it.
Oh yeah, and it's worked in some cases, which is amazing. And I think PBS wants to know what people want, and I think that we're seeing more and more airings pop up now on broadcast. PBS.org, it's going to be on for the next 6 months, so that's that's great, and that's where you can stream it. And we're determined to make sure, and the reason that we did this in terms of the community screenings is to make sure everybody could see it no matter what. So if it was there or if it wasn't there, they would have some kind of access.
Nice.
Access is everything. It's everything.
Can international people access pbs.org?
Good question. Some have been able to, some have not. We're working on international rights right now to push that out as quickly as we can. Some people have done like these different kind of apps and found ways around it, but I don't know how to do it. And so that's why we're also sending it out internationally if they want to screen internationally. So we've had a couple of different screenings, in different countries already.
Nice. And I mean, this is far enough in the future, but like tomorrow in today's world of like March 1st, I'm going to be in Sydney, Australia, speaking at the Sydney Opera House.
Yes.
And hopefully finding a koala to pet, because that's like my bucket list. But so rumors were this week that we want to screen it there, which makes complete sense.
Yeah,
so
I would love that.
Australia, we're coming.
That would be amazing.
We're coming, Australia.
I love it.
Anything else? Any other resources that I missed that we need to be able to talk about?
I love this. And thank you for what you did. That screening was
it was so fun. Well, I'm just like, you get anxious because like you film for a documentary and like you don't know if you're gonna make a cut, and you're like, dude, you're filming internet like all over the nation, all these experts, like we don't even know if we make the cut or not. And then I'm like, damn, I made the cut. And both of my ladies made the cut.
Yeah, they did. It was awesome. It was so really awesome.
So thank you for us having good stories worth telling.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me. Thank you for doing this podcast. We'll keep getting the word out.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.